I found this set of miniature salt and pepper shakers at the thrift store, and it's supposed to be a set of 12, but there was only 9 in there. And it had me wondering, what's the third mystery seasoning? Salt, pepper, and what? But it also had me wondering, could I make this into a miniature terrarium? So of course I had to try that out. It's got a great shape, and the glass walls give you plenty of viewing room for the terrarium, even though it's miniature. And this funnel is always a necessity for these smaller projects. It just makes the whole process a lot smoother. I'll need to start with the drainage layer, and I like to make mine out of aquarium grade sand. I like it because of its ability to wick away moisture quickly, and it doesn't take up too much space, especially in these tinier projects. And you can do a lot of cool designs if you choose to. So I'll just add a scoop of the tan sand and then tap the glass to level it out. Then I'll go in with some of this white sand, and you could really use any color that you like, but this is kind of the color combination that I've become accustomed to that is a little bit of a signature for me. So I'll add a scoop of the white sand, then I'll go in with a small brush and I'll make sure that it's level all the way around. And this part is a little bit tedious, but whenever you're working in a miniature, it requires a pretty steady hand to capture those details. Then I'll go back in with another scoop of the tan sand. And this is completely unnecessary to do a design in your drainage layer. But like I said before, this is kind of a signature design for me. But you could definitely get away with just doing one color of sand and it wouldn't be quite as tedious as this. Or you could do a lot more layers of sand and it would be even more tedious and a more intricate design. It really is just up to you on the overall vibe that you're going for. And next we'll add the Terrarium Soil. And if you need a Terrarium Soil recipe, I actually have a video up for that too. You can check that out. Otherwise, I'll just add a scoop of the Terrarium Soil, again through the funnel to make things a little easier. Then I'll go back in with my brush to level everything out. And now we're ready for some moss. So I'll grab some moss from my moss box. And this is just little patches of moss that I find while I'm out on hikes around the city. And I'll just collect them and then keep them in my moss box and hang on to them until I find the right project. For this project, I'm going to be using a couple of these little moss rounds and then this taller moss that'll be great for the background. And I'll just break the taller moss into some smaller pieces that will fit into the project. But first, I want to start with the little moss round. So use my tweezers and carefully guide it through the opening. Then I'll use my brush to maneuver it into place. Then I can add the taller moss to the background. And I'll use the end of a skewer stick to kind of nudge it into the correct position. I want to use a second moss round to kind of create like a hill and valley situation. And so I'll go ahead and add that to the terrarium. And then again with the end of the skewer stick, I'm going to nudge that into place. And this is what we're looking like so far, but I do want to get these moss rounds as close to the edge of the glass as possible. So I'll just use my skewer stick to make that happen. Now I want to add a little visual interest, so I'm going to add some smaller stones, but even my small stones are pretty big for this project. So I'm going to have to go ahead and dump some of them out, and then I'll carefully pick through some of my tinier stones and then just add those to my scoop, and then I can use my funnel to kind of funnel them into place. And even with the funnel, they still went everywhere. So I'll just use the end of the skewer stick to get everything into the right spot. And now this is what we're looking like. Now for the plant in this project, I'm going to be using a Fittonia. And if you've seen any of my videos, you know that Fittonias are one of my favorite plants to add to my terrariums, regardless of their size. And for this project, I'll be using this white tiger Fittonia, and I'll just take a cutting of it. And then I'll trim off the lower leaves. And in order to propagate it, you really just need this little bit of stem. And in a high humidity condition like a terrarium, it is going to root. And I'll just tuck the stem into the moss inside the terrarium. And once the Fittonia is tucked into place, we could add the shaker cap and then call this project done. But I did want to see what it would look like with a cork top. But I don't have a cork top that's the right size, so we're going to make one. And for that, we're going to use a piece of cork bark. Now, cork bark is exactly what it sounds like. It's the bark of a cork tree. And I'm just going to use one of my diamond head drill bits for this project, which is a bit overkill, but it's the only thing I have that's going to cut out this circle shape. And I think I have one that is the right size. And I'll load it into my Hodo cordless drill. Then I'll try to get the bit started into the cork so it doesn't just jump right out, and then slowly I'll bore out a piece of the cork. Now I'm going to have to try to release it from this bit, and I'll just put my tweezers into this little slot on the side, and then I can just kind of pry it out from there. And it does come out looking pretty rough, but I'll just use a fine grit sandpaper and sand it smooth. And then I'll cut it down to size. And then we have a customized cork top. Now we do need to add some moisture to the terrarium, and for that I'm going to use this little glass pipette, which is perfect for these miniature terrariums. And then I'll just add a couple drops of distilled water before placing the top to help hold the humidity so that this salt shaker turned terrarium can thrive. Now the only thing left to decide is if I prefer the cork top that we just made or the shaker top. But I don't know. Which one do you like?